punishing a wife for being cruel to her husband. Wendy Simpson sat in the chair looking around. Until a few minutes ago, she had been in the bedroom she shared with her husband Reggie, who had lived with her for 5 years. Strange, she thought. She couldn't remember exactly what she was doing. It was like she was there 1 second and then here the next. How had that happened? She looked around the room. There were no windows, and she couldn't see where the door might be. There was no obvious source of light, but the room was flooded with an almost overwhelming white light that seemed to come from everywhere. Everything in the room was white. The short robe she wore, the walls, the floor, the ceiling, the chair she was sitting in, and the table in front of her. Strange, she thought. There were no shadows anywhere. She felt a little stuffy in the room, and droplets of sweat appeared on her forehead. She wiped the sweat away with the sleeve of her robe. Finally, the door opened, and a thin man in a white suit and tie came to the desk. He sat down, opened the folder, and placed it on the desk in front of him. Before he looked at her, he looked inside the folder. He looked at her bare legs, her long blonde hair cascading down over her shoulders and the bulge of her breasts. She was very beautiful indeed. In another universe, he could have played for her himself. What a waste, he thought to himself. Wendy Simpson, he said. Is that right? He watched as she nodded. Please answer yes or no, he added. Yes, she said. I'm Wendy Simpson. Where am I? What am I doing here? He smiled briefly before answering. He had seen this hundreds of thousands of times. No, definitely millions of times. You really don't know, do you? He asked. She shook her head. No, I don't know, she replied. It's all right, he said. It's perfectly normal. You'll find out soon enough. It's pretty warm in here, she said. Can I get a glass of ice water or something? He smiled before answering. Actually, I think it's a little chilly in here, he said. Besides, they don't serve soft drinks here. Believe me, there are plenty of people here who would love a glass of ice water, he added with a slight chuckle. He always liked to say that to newcomers. Now let's get down to business. You seem to have been a very naughty little girl, he said. I'm sorry, she said quietly. He looked at her for a moment before he spoke. Don't ever apologize, he said firmly. It's too late to apologize anyway, and believe me, apologies will go unheeded anyway. All I ask is that you don't judge me, she said. I know I'm not perfect, but I've always tried to be good. I'm not here to judge you, he said. You've already been judged. I'm here to determine what level to put you on. Now let's get down to business. The entire wall changed, and Wendy felt like she was watching a giant movie of her life. As a child, you disobeyed your parents repeatedly and lied to them more than once, he said. The movie changed scenes as he spoke, reflecting the events he mentioned. All pretty standard stuff. You were 12 years old when you stole this little trinket from the little village store you visited with your mother. Do you remember it? Yes, she answered. I thought no one could see me. He grinned. That's what everyone says, he said. You were very active and had 3 abortions by the time you got to college, and the last one was so botched that the doctors had to cut out your tubes. You were what? Almost 19 at the time? You never told your husband about that, did you? Oh my God, she said. When they first got married, she told her husband that she had female problems that prevented her from getting pregnant. He bought her lies, hook, line, and sinker, and never pressed her for more information. Did you know all of this? He looked at her sternly, and his face turned dark red. Don't ever mention that name here, miss. Do you understand? She nodded her head. Yes, she said. I understand. She quickly pulled herself together, realizing she was about to apologize. He turned again to the folder in front of him, and his face took on a more normal color. Let's see, he said, picking up where he left off. By the time you graduated high school, you had sex with almost every boy in your class. The only thing that kept you out of trouble was the fact that you were over 18. In fact, the only reason you graduated was because you made love to one of your teachers for a passing grade. She remembered that incident. She didn't do too well in high school, mostly because she was too busy partying with the soccer team. Her English teacher, Mr. Ross, was a young, good-looking bachelor, so one day after school she cornered him and begged him to give her a second chance. He told her it was too late, but assured her he might be willing to give her a passing grade in exchange for sex. She was over 18 by then. She locked the door, undressed for him, and had sex with him. He gave her a B, which ensured her graduation. "You kept it up the whole time you were in college," the man said. "You had a reputation as a party girl and an available lover. Then you started using drugs. Frankly, I'm surprised you actually graduated. It was then that you met Reginald Simpson, a man who unfortunately became your husband." She remembered meeting Reggie in the common room. He was such a handsome young man with dreams of the future. He treated her like a queen. In his eyes, she was a goddess in so many ways. She thought she could change her life if only he would marry her. They dated for several months before he popped the question. Naturally, she said yes, and they got married. "You promised to be exclusive with him, but you couldn't, could you?" the man asked. "In fact, you had sex with all the men at the bachelorette party." As he spoke, a video of her party spun on the wall, and she saw a giant version of herself being made airtight by 3 muscular, well-hung men, none of whom wore any protection. "Truth be told, it took a few days before you turned to poor Reggie for sex, didn't it?" the man asked. She nodded shamefacedly as he looked at her intently. "Yes, it was," she said. "There's nothing to be ashamed of," the man said. "What's done is done. It's too late to take any of it back." He turned back to his folder, and the video changed as he spoke. "Let's see," he said. "On your wedding day, you managed to make love to your husband's best man just minutes before you walked down the aisle. I bet you enjoyed going through the ceremony with that memory, didn't you?" She remembered that day and how she felt when she did it. "Just a little bit," she answered meekly. "He was your husband's best friend, wasn't he?" "Yes, he was," she answered. "And poor Reggie never found out?" the man asked. Wendy shook her head. "No, he didn't find out," she said. "You managed to remain faithful to your husband throughout the honeymoon, but you went back to your old tricks pretty quickly," the man said. "After you were hired as a legal secretary, you started flirting with men in your office and had sex with several of them over the next few months. You even brought them to your house when Reggie was away on business trips, didn't you?" "Yes," she answered. "You really did cheat on your husband, didn't you?" the man asked. "He had never known, never suspected anything, even when you gave him sloppy seconds. He thought I was really waiting for him when he came back from his trips," she said. "He didn't realize it." "That's because that ignorant idiot loved you," the man said. "Meanwhile, you were laughing to yourself, weren't you? You liked your power over him, didn't you? You could tell him anything, and he'd believe you." "I think so," she said. In truth, the man was right. She often laughed to herself when she thought about how she had cheated on her husband. All the time they had been married, she had thought she had gotten away with her adultery. "But the truth is, you hated him, didn't you? I mean, he worked his ass off for you two while you had sex with everything that moved." "I didn't hate him," she said. "I loved him, just in a different way." "Bullshit," the man said. "You forget that we know everything, even the thoughts that went through your head. You didn't respect him. You thought he was a weakling who would never be as rich and powerful as the men you slept with. He was just a backup for you, something to help you in between making love to your lovers. In fact, you thought of him as just a stepping stone until you caught someone else who could give you the life you really wanted. Isn't that the truth? Don't even think about lying to me. We already know what was on your mind." "Good," Wendy said. surprised that this man knew so much about her and what she really thought of her ignorant, horny husband. "I admit it," she added, and tears ran down her cheeks. "Stop crying," the man said, disgusted with her. "It's too late for regrets. You've made your choice, and now you're paying the piper." "Don't I have another chance?" she asked. "Please. I'll make it up to him, I promise." The man laughed before answering. "Give me a break," he said. "What, do you think this is some kind of reality show or something? You've had a lifetime of second chances, and you've missed them every time. Maybe there's something I can do or give you to change your mind," she began, unzipping her robe so he could look at her smooth body. "I know this is what you want. What every man wants." He laughed. "Do you really think you can handle it?" he asked, unzipping his pants. "What's the matter? Too hot to handle?" he asked, laughing madly. Wendy leaned back in her chair, feeling defeated. For the first time in her memory, she couldn't get a man. She stared at the wall, watching videos of her many flirtations. It seemed to go on forever, never ending. For the first time in her memory, she truly hoped to see a commercial, anything, just to stop what was playing. She watched a video of the company's last Christmas party, the one she had attended with her husband, being shown on the wall. After slipping the poor man a sleeping pill to put him to sleep and some drugs, she left with 3 of her male co-workers and made love to them in one of the rooms set aside by the company for partygoers who were too drunk to drive. Thanks to alcohol and drugs, he never knew what had just happened to his wife. She remembered laughing about it all the time. She also continued to have fun about it the next day when she was at work, talking about it and joking around with the 3 men she served. "To tell you the truth, you were pretty cruel to your husband, weren't you?" the man asked. Thinking about it, she realized that she had been cruel to the only man who loved her unconditionally. "Yes," she answered quietly. "Do you know how your husband eventually figured it out?" the man asked. Wendy shook her head. "No, I don't," she replied. "He caught an STD from you," the man said. The day he was supposed to leave town on a business trip, he went to the bathroom. He almost fell off from the pain and gumming, so he found a substitute at work, took the day off, and went to his doctor. After he got the test results proving he had an STD, he went home to meet you. Imagine his surprise when he walked in the house and heard you and your lover having sex in your bedroom. Tell me, do you remember the last few minutes before you got here? Wendy thought about it, but couldn't remember anything. "No, I don't remember," she answered. "No problem," he said. "That's quite normal considering what happened. Let me jog your memory a little." As she stared at the wall, the video changed. Then she suddenly remembered what had happened. She was at home with one of her co-workers. To be precise, she was in her bedroom, naked on the bed she shared with her husband, while her lover, Jake, was making love to her. Next thing she knew, her husband was in the bedroom. She didn't realize he was there until she looked up and found herself looking into the muzzle of a very large and powerful gun. Reggie had a large collection of guns that he kept under lock and key, rifles, pistols, shotguns, whatever. He silently cocked the trigger and pulled the trigger. The last thing she remembered was a loud gunshot and a flash from the muzzle. The video on the wall showed what happened to her head, which basically exploded when the bullet penetrated her skull. The next bullet hit Jake in the groin. Wendy began to shake as she watched the video. "This can't be happening," she said, tears streaming down her face. "It didn't really happen, did it?" "Oh, yes, it happened," the man said. "That means I'm dead," she sobbed. "Please tell me this isn't happening." "Yes, it's happening," the man said. "It's happening." "What about Jake and my husband?" she asked. "It's a little late to worry about him," the man said. "But since you asked, your lover ended up in the hospital. He'll live. He's lost a good chunk of his dignity and won't make babies, but that's probably a good thing. Your husband realized what he'd done and pointed the gun at himself. Is he dead too? She asked. The man shook his head in the negative. No, he said. Somehow he screwed up, and the bullet never penetrated his skull, though it did damage his face. He's in surgery and will probably spend a few years in a mental hospital, but he'll move on, without you. Will I ever see him again? She asked. No, the man replied. Before he pulled the trigger, he begged you-know-who for forgiveness, he added, pointing upwards. That kind of thing is very popular up there. So he killed me and gets away with it? She asked. I wouldn't say that, the man shrugged. There will be an investigation, there will be charges, but a good lawyer will defend him, probably citing temporary insanity. After all, he tried to kill himself. Anyone who tries that isn't going to work with a full deck, if you know what I mean. Like I said, he'll spend some time in a rubber room, but will eventually rebuild his life. Unlike you. And what's going to happen to me? She asked. Well, we're not the type to give people what they want, he told her. You can forget spending eternity making love, but we have a nice lake here. It's a little hot, but don't worry. You might get used to it after a few centuries. She looked at him, shocked. What do you mean by that? She asked. He pressed a button on the table and the floor beneath her opened up. The chair she had been sitting on disappeared and her robe vanished. She found herself standing, naked, in front of a man who was now looking at her. There was a disgusting odor in the room that reminded her of rotten eggs. There were moans coming from a hole in the floor. What's that? She asked. Well, that's where you'll spend the rest of eternity, he said with a wicked grin. Welcome to hell! Her eyes widened as she finally realized where she was. He heard her scream as she, naked, dove into the lake of fire. He pressed another button, and the floor closed again. Ah, to hear the lamentations of sinners. What a loss, he said, addressing no one in particular, adjusting his pants. He closed the folder, stood up, and walked out the door to prepare for the next shower. They never learn, he thought. It's okay, he decided. Hell isn't even half full yet. The end! Subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Your work is worth more than our marriage. My tools were laid out like a surgeon's. A battery-powered beard trimmer, a razor blade, shaving cream, a bowl of warm water and a warm washcloth. A towel was spread out on the bed. My wife, Mary, came in, fresh from the bathroom, and lay down with the towel tucked under her. Naturally, she was naked. I grabbed the beard trimmer, and as soon as I turned it on, she jumped off the bed like a wildcat. You're not touching me with that thing. You can cut with scissors, but you don't shave me. She spewed venom as she spat out those words. I completely lost interest. This was supposed to be the prelude to some nice husband and wife sex. I just got out of bed, got dressed, went to the kitchen, and opened a beer. I was tired of playing her games. My wife and I have been married for 28 years, and in all those years, there hasn't been a single week that I haven't asked Mary for permission to shave her bush. She always flatly refused, that is, until about 2 months ago. It was my turn to make dinner, and I bought a takeout pizza. I actually had 2 pizzas, a cheese pizza for her and a pepperoni pizza for me. Mary took one look at the pizza and said, Jack, you need to lose weight. Give up hamburgers, fries, and pizza, lose 25 pounds in 6 weeks, and you can shave my bush. It didn't sound like a bad deal because I wanted to lose weight, so I just got my motivation. The next morning, I went to the doctor who recommended diet and exercise. I had been meaning to go to the gym for a long time, but that morning I did. I had never eaten so much salad, and my muscles were constantly sore. Still, I had lost weight. In fact, I had lost 31 pounds in 6 weeks. Today was supposed to be the big payday, but it wasn't. Mary wouldn't let me touch her, and for the first time in my life, I refused to have sex. I was done asking to shave the bush. Let it become a forest. My name is Jack Anderson. I'm balding. I'm 49, a little overweight, and out of shape. I work as a real estate broker, and I don't work in an office. I pay a secretary to do it and usually only work by appointment. I work mostly in commercial real estate. I'm doing okay, but real estate is an out-of-line business, either feast or famine. I've been in the business a long time and have made good investments in good years and just treaded water in bad years. I'm not complaining as real estate has been good to me, and not having to keep a watch is worth a fortune. I consider myself fortunate. Mary and I have been married for 28 years. We met in college and were married when she found out she was pregnant with our son. A daughter followed, but my wife persevered through college and earned a degree in accounting. A year later, she had that CPA paper at her fingertips. Our two children, Ben and Debbie, both graduated from college, moved away, and started families. My wife is blonde, 48 years old, 5 feet 6 inches tall, about 120 pounds, almost the same weight she was in college. Mary's first job was working for a large accounting firm located in downtown Dallas. She has been with the firm for the past 20 years and now heads the department with her secretary. She has a team of 5 accountants who work under her. Sometimes, but not often, they travel as a team for audits. They usually travel on Wednesday, do the audit on Thursday and Friday, spend Saturday writing the report, and return on Sunday. The agency has several audit teams, and the trips alternate between teams, so they only have to travel 2 or 3 times a year. We always had a good sex life. At least I thought so. Every day when the kids were younger, but lately only a couple times a week. I still have the desire and certainly could perform more often, but Mary is either tired or not in the mood. I try my best to keep the affair going. I send her flowers to the office, bring her coffee from Starbucks, take her out to lunch once a week, and always have dinner and dancing on Friday night. The two of us always do something together on Saturday, and then on Sunday we get lazy and try to spend at least the morning in bed. I love her just as much, if not more, as the day we got married. I was sitting in the kitchen drinking coffee when Mary walked in. She had just put on her robe. She poured herself some coffee and sat down. "Jack, I'm so sorry. I know I promised you, but when you turned on the beard trimmer, I couldn't take it. I've been proud of my bush my whole life, and I just don't think I want to part with it. How about just tidying it up with scissors? No, I won't touch this topic or bring it up again. But I have to admit, I'm very disappointed. I feel like you misled me into making me lose weight and promising me a special reward if I did, which I didn't get. I feel that blackmail, coercion, deception, and lies were involved in this little situation. We have been married for a long time, and I have never felt so humiliated by you. We rarely argued, and if we did, we kissed and made up immediately. This time we were strangely silent for days. I felt I had done everything she had asked, and more. Why should I bow down and apologize? What exactly had I done wrong? Lost more weight than I needed to? We got up, had breakfast, went to work, and then came back after work, all without talking. Had I forgotten that we hadn't had sex either? Finally, after about 10 days, I reached my limit. What exactly do you want? Why are you still angry? Do you somehow think it's my fault? Yes, it's all your fault. If you hadn't been pestering me to shave my hair off since we got married, this wouldn't have happened. Why can't you just accept me for who I am? In all the time we've been together, I've never once made you do anything you don't like, not one little thing. Did I come to you and ask you if I lost weight? Would you let me shave your bush as a reward? Did I suggest that, or did you? Stop playing games. You know I suggested you lose weight, but I couldn't go through with it, so shoot me. Why has this become such a problem? Can we just call a truce and go back to the way things were before? I agree. Let's just not discuss it anymore. I'm sick of it. So our life resumed almost exactly as before. However, I was still on a diet and continued to go to the gym every day. If Mary paid attention, she didn't say anything. Sex, at least for me, had become more bland. She just didn't have the interest or desire to put as much effort into it as she used to. We had lost something in our relationship. Was she premenopausal? I knew that my wife's team had to go traveling at the end of the month, and these were always tiring and stressful trips. I made it a habit to cook dinner every night and bring fresh flowers into the house. Mary would always come home and find a glass of chilled wine waiting for her. I did my best to make her feel special and know that I cared for her. My wife has never, despite numerous attempts to buy attractive lingerie, worn anything revealing. She has a model's body, but she never showed it off in stylish clothes, let alone lingerie or heels. I watched her put things away the night before and wondered what it would take to get her to change her appearance. We had casual sex that night, and I still felt Mary was hiding something. She didn't want or help spice up our sex life. The goal was to get away from me as soon as possible so she could get some sleep. Just doing her duty. The next morning at breakfast, I asked if her usual crew was traveling with her, and she answered in the affirmative, including her boss. The upper management had been reorganized, so she ended up with the new boss, and he wanted to travel together to observe and learn how the team worked. They met at work, and a van was booked to take them all together to the airport. Usually on trips, Mary calls every night, and we exchange several messages over the course of the 5-day trip. I only took a call from her once. It was at lunch, and she was in a big hurry. She apologized and just said it was a crazy trip. I wasn't too worried, as she never gave me the slightest hint that she was cheating. Mary got home around 4 o'clock on Sunday afternoon, which was about 3 hours after the plane landed. She apologized for being late, saying that the boss wanted to meet with the team before letting anyone go home. She was exhausted and just wanted to shower and go to bed. I told her to go upstairs and I would be right behind her. I wanted sex, as it was always great after a trip. When I walked into the bathroom, Mary had already showered, wrapped herself in a towel, and was brushing her teeth. I told her to get in bed, and I would be right there. I took a quick shower and was soon in bed with her. She complained that she was tired and asked me to wait, but I told her that I missed her and wanted to make love to her before she went to bed. She reluctantly agreed. We started kissing, and eventually I moved down her body, and when I got down there was something missing. Her bush was gone. I sat up and looked at her and said, "What happened to your bush?" Mary looked at me and said, "Jack, nothing happened, and I did it for you." I replied, "That's a lie and you know it. What happened? I don't think you could do it yourself. Tell me, what happened?" Then I got up and got dressed. I went to my home office and just cried. I knew that my loving wife had cheated on me, most likely several times. This was new ground for me, so I got on the internet and did a Google search on what to look for with an unfaithful wife. Several things came up, including, did she come home and shower right away? Check, she did. Look at her panties for signs of a man. I slipped upstairs and found her asleep, so I looked in the dirty clothes hamper for her panties. I didn't find her granny panties that she usually wears, but I did find a pair of thongs, and they had the marks of a man on them. Someone had had sex with her right before she came home. Mary's story. I always thought Jack and I had a near-perfect marriage and as happy a marriage as any. We were always there for each other. We always did everything together, including raising 2 wonderful children. Jack was my rock. I am so ashamed that I let him down and now see my life in ruins. I never wanted or needed sex like Jack did. 2 or 3 times a week was fine with me, but he could do it every day. He always had a higher libido. I thought I was happy with what we were doing with each other sexually, but since Jack was the first guy I had ever kissed, let alone done anything else, I was very inexperienced and naive. Sometimes I wondered what it would be like to have sex with someone else after I had fantasized about it. I grew up in a very religious and conservative family and have extremely sanctimonious ideas about my appearance and behavior. Jack was constantly urging me to wear more attractive underwear, more fashionable clothes, and heels. I was always more comfortable wearing granny panties and girly bras that didn't leave anything exposed. Jack even pestered me after our wedding to shave my bush. I am proud of my bush, and besides, if it was shaved, I would never be able to pass a medical exam because nice girls don't shave. It would be so embarrassing for me. So I never did it, and never even considered experimenting with anything Jack ever asked me to do. My accounting agency had recently restructured its upper management, and I found my department under a new boss, Eric Thompson. He was 10 years younger than me, very handsome and very commanding. For the first time in my life, I felt completely submissive. I'm not saying I like it, but I found it arousing, awakening feelings in me that hadn't been awakened in years. I enjoy just being in his presence. When Eric announced that he was going to the audit with my team, I knew he was going because he wanted to have sex with me. I was very nervous as I had always been completely faithful to my husband. I had never been molested, but I was secretly flattered that such a handsome young man was interested in a woman like me. After the first day of the inspection, I found myself alone with Eric in my room, and he didn't waste any time removing my clothes. I was completely under his control, and I loved it. He laughed at my underwear and said we'd deal with it tomorrow during lunch. When he saw my bush, he said he wouldn't tolerate it. He was in charge, so I didn't say a word. Finally, he took off my clothes and told me I was hiding my model body under those awful granny underwear. He made love to my breasts. No one has ever played with them like Eric. Then he made love to me. Eric was a big man, much bigger than Jack. He had stamina and could have sex for 30 minutes, and he was the best man I ever had in my life. In fact, I only had Jack to compare Eric to, and there was little comparison. Eric kept his word and shaved me the next day. I didn't say a word, but I realized that when I got home I was in trouble. Admittedly, I felt sexier without hair, not to mention cleaner. Eric and I also went shopping for new lingerie and clothes. I just took all of Eric's suggestions and realized that this was what Jack had wanted me to buy for years. We had sex every chance we got before we went home. Eric even made love to me on the couch in his office the day we returned from our trip. I felt dirty as I walked home since I hadn't taken the time to wash myself. I wanted to take a shower at home. Naturally, after the trip, Jack wanted sex as soon as I got home. I did my best to get rid of him, but Jack was persistent and eventually I agreed, but only after the shower. I wanted to wash Eric off. Jack started making love to me, and when he realized I had shaved, he knew right away that I had cheated. He got up, got dressed, and went downstairs. I caught him in the kitchen, drinking coffee, and I realized he saw right through me. He knew I was having an affair. We just coexisted for the next few days. I continued to dress in my sexy clothes and saw Eric again over a long lunch that included amazing sex. I felt like a new young girl when I was with Eric and couldn't wait to be with him again. We actually saw each other a few more times before Jack dropped the hammer. I felt like he did it because of my actions. He was very angry and got straight to the point. If I want to stay married to him, I have to quit my job and end things with Eric. I told Jack that I couldn't just pick up and leave since I had worked there for over 20 years. He said I made my choice, so he got up, packed up, and left. Jack made my life a living hell, and somehow he got photo evidence, and after it was exposed, my life and job turned to ashes. My life as I knew it was over. Jack's story continued. I thought about the members of her team. They were all married and much younger than Mary. They had worked together as a team for a long time, and I trusted each of them. They were almost like family to us. The only thing left was her new boss, and I didn't know him at all. For the next few days, I watched my beautiful wife get dressed every morning, pretending I was still asleep in bed, but I could see what she was wearing, and it was all very sexy, even the thigh-length stockings and heels. I realized that the only time Mary could really have a relationship with someone was during lunch, so I sat across the street at the cafe every day watching the staff come in. I didn't see her until Wednesday when she walked out with a man a few years younger than us. They got into his car and drove off. I didn't need to follow them as I sat with my cell phone open on the Find a Phone app and watched until the dot stopped moving. I zoomed in on the image and made a note of it. I later found out it was a Hampton Inn. That night, my wife got home on time and asked me why I hadn't prepared any chilled wine or dinner for her. I said, "Make your own dinner." I grabbed a bottle of red wine and disappeared into my office. That night, I slept in the guest room. One thing I knew for sure, I wasn't planning on having sex with Mary again, as there was no doubt she was making love to someone else. What if she had contracted an STD? The next morning when Mary got out of bed, I was gone. I was waiting in my attorney's office when he opened the door at 8 in the morning. Frank was a personal friend of mine and had probably gotten rich off the work I had sent him over the past 30 years. I told him about my wife's affair and wanted him to handle the divorce paperwork. In addition, I wanted to take some action against her boss, but I wasn't sure how to proceed. Frank said there wasn't much we could do without hard evidence. I needed ironclad proof. Texas state is guilt-free, so divorcing Mary would be easy. Frank suggested we leave the case for a couple weeks and hire a private investigator to gather evidence. Frank sent me to what he thought was the best detective in Dallas, and from the amount he asked for, I'm sure he did. I explained what I needed, gave him Mary's picture, and explained that the last contact was during lunch at the Hampton Inn, not far from where she works. He said, "Be patient," and he would be able to give me what I needed. We just coexisted for the next few days, barely saying a word. Where was she going to go with our relationship? Finally, on Sunday, I had had enough. Knowing I might fail the detective's investigation, I asked, "Mary, what's going on? We're just living together, not as husband and wife." "Jack, there's a lot going on at work and my new boss is very demanding." "So is he the reason for all the sexy lingerie, new clothes and heels? Did he make you or shave off your bush? I assume he also soiled your new thong when you got home last Sunday? You did everything I've always asked you to do for some asshole who just recently came into your life. Is he married too? Oh, and I bet he still has kids at home. I can't tell you how much you hurt me. Do you still love me?" She didn't answer, she just cried. "What do you want me to do?" "Are you interested in saving our marriage, or do you just want to continue living the way you are now?" "Saving our marriage is the most important thing in my life." "Mary, quit your job. We don't need the money. If you keep working there, your affair will continue, and that's the end of our marriage. I will not tolerate being hornswoggled. I can guarantee it will be a messy divorce, and you will end up disgraced and lose your job anyway." Mary must have thought I was bluffing and replied, "I can't leave. I've worked there for over 20 years and I love what I do." "Is that your answer? Your job is worth more than our marriage." "Jack, I didn't say that. I said I didn't want to leave." I got up and walked out of the kitchen. I packed 2 suitcases, gathered the office things I needed, and loaded them into the car. Mary came out and asked what I was doing. "Mary, you've made your decision and I'm no longer involved in this case. Just don't forget that I warned you. So when things go south, don't come crying to me." I checked into the Hilton Hotel and called the kids to explain that I had left their mom. I didn't tell them why, simply because we didn't get along. Naturally, they were both disappointed. I called the detective and explained that I had left home, and he needed to keep a closer eye on Mary. Now she had plenty of time to play. The next day they played at lunch. The detective reported to me that he was able to make an audio recording, but not knowing in advance what room they would be in, he was unable to make a video recording. He was able to take pictures of them getting in and out of the car and entering the room. He asked me if I suspected it might happen again, and I said I probably did. The detective was going to bribe the clerk to make sure they entered a certain room so he could set up a camera. They came back the next day right on schedule. I was able to get over an hour of footage of them having sex. Then they chatted, and Mary admitted that I knew about them and was worried about what I was going to do. He told her not to worry, because he could take care of me. This guy was several inches taller than me and weighed at least 100 pounds. I felt somewhat threatened. That same day, after reviewing the tape, I took it to Frank. I wanted revenge, and fast. Serve Maria immediately on her adultery job. Send the tape to her bosses and everyone on her team, as well as the asshole's wife and any member of his family who has an email address. I instructed Frank to send me a copy, and I would make sure mine and her family got it. I wanted to destroy both of them. Next, I asked Frank to find out if the accounting firm could be sued. There must be some moral code in the organization that prevents management from taking advantage of subordinate employees. At the very least, we could sue for harassment. At 9 Golder the next morning, Mary was served at work and sent a group email at the same time. A few minutes later, Mary was standing in front of the CEO using a conference call since she was in Atlanta. She was killed on the spot, as was her lover. Now the CEO had to deal with a $10 million lawsuit against the agency. He was not happy. A few minutes later, my cell phone rang. Finally, I answered. "Yes, Mary?" "Jack, how could you do this to me?" "Mary, didn't I warn you on Sunday that this was going to turn into a nightmare very quickly? You chose your job and your lover over me. I told you I wouldn't tolerate being cuckolded, but you made love to him again on Monday and Tuesday. I suspect that once his wife watches the video, he will have a lot more time to be with you. In fact, I suspect you both will have a lot of free time. I assume you are both unemployed at the moment." I heard Mary crying on the phone. "Is there any way to repair our marriage?" "Mary, what do you think? How many opportunities have I given you in the last few weeks? Now I wonder how much you ever loved me enough to treat me the way you do. In all the 28 years we've been married, you've never once done anything like this for me? Nothing? Then you go away for 5 days for work and come back dressed in everything I've always asked you to wear, and also with a shaved bush. I should have left you then. Do you really think I'm that stupid?" Then, as a belated thought, "You need to take everything you want out of the house and find a place to live because I'm going to sell it. It's a 50-50 condition, so we're just splitting everything. I'll give you 60 days to do it, or I'll donate everything to charity." After that, I only communicated with Mary through my attorney. I didn't care about that anymore. I didn't know where she lived or what she was doing. I asked my daughter if her mom was dating this guy, but apparently she wasn't. She said her mom was depressed the whole time. Payback is a bad thing, I think. The accounting agency wanted to settle out of court, but I asked Frank if he could delay the lawsuit until the divorce was finalized because I didn't want to split the money with Mary. After the divorce, I wouldn't have to split it. A month or two later, Frank called and told me I was a free man. He said the accounting agency had now agreed to settle out of court for $6 million, so I told him to go ahead and settle. Even after splitting everything with Mary, I had about $5 million in investments and real estate. With the addition of the settlement money, I decided I didn't need any more work. I found a buyer for my agency, and that brought me another $2 million. The house was sold by this time, and the money was divided. I decided it was time for me to move on, but I wasn't sure where. Florida is a state of either young people or old people. I didn't want to add to the old statistics, so I decided to take a world cruise first before making a decision. I called my kids and asked if we could all have dinner together since I was going out of town and didn't have a return date. My daughter asked if she could bring her mom. Sure, why not? Dinner was good, however. The sight of Mary almost broke my heart. She had lost weight and was being treated for severe depression. She was living with my daughter. I just figured you girl had made her bed and was now lying in it. She hardly said a word the entire evening. I explained my cruise plan and hopefully find somewhere to live. Everyone but Mary was happy for me. As we got up to leave, Mary walked over to me, kissed me on the cheek, and wished me good luck. Then before she turned around, she said, "Jack, I'm so sorry for ruining our marriage. It was entirely my fault. You were the best husband anyone could ever dream of. I'm so ashamed. I didn't see the point in rubbing salt in the wounds, so I just said, goodbye, Mary." I traveled for 6 months and finally decided to stop in the Algarve, Portugal, which was as close to perfect as I could find. There was a whole community of English-speaking retirees there, and they were actively involved in social activities. Many were single women my age or a little younger. According to my daughter, Mary wasn't seeing anyone else. She became even more depressed, and they had to seek medical help. The asshole who started this mess divorced his wife, lost his job, and had a hard time finding another one in a neighboring state. By the way, not only did I regain my fitness, but I lost over 50 pounds. The end! Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.